As we lift up and acknowledge all the prayers in the prayer box today, I invite you to add the prayers and concerns on your heart and mind, knowing that all requests are prayed with by our prayer chaplains and forwarded to Silent Unity, where they are prayed with for an additional 30 days. We affirm that the answers and solutions to all requests are now moving into form and manifestation. Please join me now in meditation. Become centered in your chair, removing any items that may be in your lap, and if you wish, close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath. We are going on a journey from our head to our heart. Today, focus your heart on love. When you love someone, you want to spend time with the person. You talk to them on the phone or send them text messages. You may give them small gifts. Your eyes sparkle when you talk to them. You feel happy in their presence. Love radiates from you. You feel, say, do, and become the best that you are capable of being. Love opens your heart. Take another deep breath. As you breathe, allow each breath to become slower and deeper. Pay attention to the air as it enters your nostrils and fills your lungs. Just as you fill your lungs with a new breath, allow the meditation of love to fill your heart. If you notice resistance, let it go when you exhale. When we breathe in love, we are breathing in the highest vibration of spirit. When we exhale the lower vibration of ego. We often think of a mother's love for her child as one of the highest forms of human love. Today, in this Advent season, we go beyond our own human understanding of love. We meditate on Mary's love for the baby Jesus. Our Christ spirit may start small, like the infant Jesus. Yet love expands. Just as Jesus grew into his Christ nature and became an expressive, expansive teacher, way-shower, and friend, we too can grow into our Christ consciousness. Jesus arrived on a cold, wintry night. Have you gazed up at the moon on a crisp winter night? How still, deep, and dark is the night sky. Envision the moon and the stars of a wintry night suddenly eclipsed by a host of angels praising God. Breathe in the constellation of stars. Breathe in the very newest atoms being born at the edge of our galaxy. Let the smallness of ego evaporate from the light of a million suns. Let your mind and heart dwell on songs of praise, songs of joy, and like the angels, songs of love. The first and great commandment is, thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Meditate on love this Advent season. Think of the love of Mary, of Joseph, and of Jesus. The Christ Spirit is being born in your life this Christmas season. Devote your quiet contemplation time to love and the birth of Spirit. Give yourself to love. Let love be born anew. When you seek the kingdom of God, search for the love that dwells within you. Focus on that you most cherish. The love that transcends all human understanding will grow in you as you dedicate your life to love. And so it is.
Advent, as I've said, each week since we started Advent is a time for preparation. When we prepare ourselves for the coming of the Christ consciousness, or a rebirthing of the Christ consciousness, or an expansion of the Christ consciousness. Preparing the manger, getting ourselves ready for that. And each week I've invited you to do something with the various virtues that we've been talking about each week. We started with week 1 with just faith. And I gave you that invitation to really examine your faith, to look at how much do you really believe? Where is your faith? Can you really believe you can move mountains? And if you can't, then what can you believe? How far does your faith really take you during this Christmas season? And how can you begin to build that faith, strengthen that faith, and move into a greater sense of God and faith and your creative power? Last week we talked about peace. And in peace I talked about the peace that comes from within. That we have so many aspects of ourselves, and that when we split those aspects of our own selves, we separate. And in separation, we create a separation without. As within, so without. And so a goal in our work last week was to really look at ourselves and begin to accept all aspects of ourselves. Becoming whole. Because with wholeness, we have peace. So week 3 is love. And in our beautiful meditation, we talked about the types of love that are so powerful, the mother and a child, certainly Mary and Jesus, and the love of God and the love of Christ consciousness. Well, I'm going to talk about something else today. Different kind of love. That love is loving what is. Okay? Loving what is. Oh, that's right. Not necessarily an easy thing to do, because loving what is means that we have to accept whatever is. And when we look at accepting what is, it's like, no, I don't want to accept that. If I accept that, that means I can't change it. So we have this paradox in New Thought where we need to accept what is and love what is in order for us to actually make change. Because we talk a lot about, our internal consciousness and where we are, and as within, so without. And our internal consciousness is what creates, what attracts all things to us. So when we are not accepting the reality, in which we live, we argue with the reality. Now, ask yourself, how often you argue with your reality? Well, I don't like this. I don't want this to happen. Why did this happen? I wish this didn't happen. Why me? Or what's going on here? How do I change this? This is not, we go on and on and on, and we argue about what is happening. Rather than, let me just love it, and then begin to move on. When we argue with reality, we are creating a certain vibration within us, okay? We argue about it. I don't like this. This is not right. This isn't fair, okay? I have to take this to a higher court, if you will, and so on. And we start, what happens when we get into that tension, into that argument, we create an argument vibration within us, okay? And then what do we attract? Well, it's it. So when we can move into a place of simply loving what is, then we create a love vibration. And the love vibration begins to attract something new, something different. It's perhaps one of the hardest, I think, New Thought principles to embrace. And that is acceptance. That is loving what is. I think it's one of the hardest things to do because we generally want to argue with things we don't like. Okay? And in so doing, we create, as I said, a lower vibration. Byron Katie, in her book, Loving What Is, gives an example. She says, which is more empowering? I wish I hadn't lost my job. Supposing you lost your job. Well, I wish I hadn't lost my job. Why did I lose my job? You know, it's not me, it's them, it's the company. The company, look what they did. They're not run right, they're not doing things right. It's the leadership, okay? Or we come with all kinds of reasons why we've lost our job. Well, maybe I didn't do such a good job, but you know, it's not just all me, it's all about these other things. And why does this keep happening? Well, I don't know. And we argue with the fact that we've lost a job, right? Now, what if we went like this? I lost my job. What can I do now? You see, in the former, when we argue with reality, we don't accept or we don't love what is, we actually create a victim consciousness. You know, we are creating a victim consciousness when we are arguing with reality. And if you move into victim consciousness, then you start to attract more things that will enable and continue that victim consciousness. Versus if you can say, you know, oh, hi, I love what is. Accept what is. Now, you start to move into what can I do, and that puts you into possibility thinking. That moves you into a totally different vibration when you start using your creative resources. And in fact, it moves you into a different type of the brain, a different function of the brain. You move out of that negative reptilian type of brain, which is that anger and fight or flight and so on that we get into, that's reactionary, and you move into using your frontal lobe, which is creative, which is the love center in our brains, which opens us up to possibilities and new ways of thinking. So if we can begin to just accept and love what is, then we can move into creative thinking and creative ideas. What is possible now? Rather than arguing with what's already happened. So you have to ask yourself, how often do we do that? A lot of times people say, well, if I don't argue with it, then it means I condone it. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you condone. It doesn't mean you even necessarily approve it. It simply means you accept. Acceptance and loving it means that it has happened. It is some divine order has unfolded in my life. And therefore, I now look at what opportunities and possibilities are available for me. It can be a very exciting time, and it takes you out of being a victim. A lot of times we make up stories about our reality when we argue with it, okay? So, and I know you do. I do. We all do. I mean, this seems to be the human function to make up stories. And then we, the stories get bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden we go way beyond what the actual event is. For example, there's a car that's coming up and it's racing. You're on the freeway, and it's just acting crazy and spinning in and out, and passing cars and whatnot. And you immediately have judgment about this person, right? You make up a story. Oh, these people, they're always in a hurry. They just can't slow down. They don't know what it means to be in the Christmas spirit. Okay, and you get excited about that and say, look at how they're acting, and so on and so forth. And then they almost get in an accident. You see, there's an accident waiting to happen. This is why we need to have, deal with this road rage. I don't know why the police aren't out here today. Where's the police when you really need them? To catch these people who are doing this. And all of a sudden, you start building the story. And if you really get in the mood, and you're getting into, all those people on the road who are like this, I'd like to just ram them myself, okay? And you just get into, they need to be taught a lesson. And you can go on and on and on. Now, maybe it's not on the road, but I'll bet you do it with maybe someone else, okay? Someone looks at you funny, well, wonder what's up with her, what's going on with her? Oh, she's not happy about this. She's not happy about that. And we start building a story about it, and it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Go back to the car on the road. And all of a sudden that car catches up, and you see a woman holding a baby that's turning blue. then all of a sudden just deflates. Your story about all of these people on the road who act in a certain way. So here's a couple who has a baby who's dying and they're racing to get to a hospital. And there's a real reason why they are doing what they are doing. And all of a sudden you understand that, and it's sort of like all the judgment goes away. And all of a sudden you say, oh. Matter of fact, you might even get out of the way to make room for them to go. The thing is, a lot of times we hypothesize, we have all these theories why people are doing the things that they are doing. And in actuality, it's our story that's coming up, is it not? You know, it's our story that we are imposing on them, and so we create a bigger and a bigger story. And in so doing, we don't accept what is or love what is. We argue with what is. Now, if we can begin to truly love whatever is happening in our life, loving what is, it's the ultimate expression of love. To truly love whatever is unfolding, because then you know that whatever is unfolding is in divine order. That the universe truly is working for us, not against us. There's several ways in which I think we can practice this, loving what is. And the first one is, building on last week, is to love ourselves. To love ourselves just as we are, which means accepting ourselves just as we are. Too often we get into comparison. I want to be like this person, I want to be like that person, or I'm not good enough, or I'm better than. And we compare and contrast and so on, and so doing, we create this separation and we're not in a place of love. There's a wonderful story about a 38-year-old woman. She was a scrub woman. She did cleaning. It was the only thing that she could find to do. And she would go to the movies and she would think, oh, if I only had her looks. She was not a particularly attractive woman. And she would pine for, oh, I wish I could look like that. And then she would hear them sing or hear different ones sing, and she said, oh, if only I had a voice. And I could sing like that. Oh, that would be so wonderful. Always holding herself in limitation and sadness. And then somebody gave her a book, The Magic of Believing. It's a classic by Claude Bristow. And she devoured it, and all of a sudden, her perspective shifted about what she was not, but about what she was, what she is. And she started to look at, well, who am I? I'm not all those things. And rather than dwelling on all those things that she was not, she said, well, what am I? How do I accept and love me? So she brought her heart to her self-concept. She accepted the gift of God that she was and is. And that sort of inspired something in her. She thought, well, I remember in high school that I brought laughter to so many people. Maybe that's my calling. So she brought that force within her and took action on who she was. Phyllis Diller brought joy, laughter, merriment, and the ability to laugh at ourselves to millions of people. So it's when we accept who we are and love what is that we can begin to really use that. Use our gifts and our talents, whatever that may be, into creating something wonderful for ourselves. The second thing that we can do is begin to love others as they are. Accept others as they are. Well, as hard as it is to accept ourselves, sometimes it's even harder to accept others. Especially if we want them to change or we want them to do something different. The greatest gift you can give anyone is to accept them just as they are. I was working with a client, it was a woman, and she was having a very difficult time with the fact that her husband was a smoker. And yes, he went outside to smoke. She insisted upon that or whatever. But she started to make a story about this, okay? She said, I'm really concerned that he's smoking because then he's going to get sick. And then if he gets sick, I'm going to have to take care of him. And then what if he gets sick? And then what if he dies? And then he won't be there for our children. And she was carrying on about this. And I said, has this, where's this coming from? And she said, well, my dad died young. And we grew up without a father. And now I know my children are going to grow up with a father because he smokes. He has to stop smoking. And she was so insistent upon this. And I said, so are you yapping at him all the time about it? She said, every day. Every day. Tell him, how can you love us and still smoke? So I said, okay, here's your assignment. I said, for 1 month, shut up. For 1 month, just accept your husband. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you love him? Yes. Okay. Do you want to stay married to him? Yes. Do you want him to continue to be the father of your children? Yes. Okay. So accept him just as he is. I don't know if I can do that, whatever. I said, just begin to accept him. Now, interestingly enough, she was so upset about this that her blood pressure was going sky high. I mean, she was creating such a story about the fact that he was going to die and leave her destitute because he was a smoker that, that it got really super carried away. So I said, just accept the fact that he smokes. She said, that means I condone it. It doesn't mean that you condone it. It means you accept it. And accept him. Love what is. But she had to work at it, but she did it. And interestingly enough, a month later, she came back and she says, I don't know. She said, I feel a whole lot better. I said, yeah, when you just accept, and you're not arguing with things, you begin to feel better, and so on. And she came back a month later, and she says, you won't believe it. I said, you quit, right? She said. So when we love what is, we change the vibration. We change the energy. If you have someone who wants to change you all the time, what happens when they push you and change you? What do? You push back. And you have this conflict and you have this energy going back and forth, and that is the tension. Whether that tension is within us, whether it's between us, between groups of people, that tension of always wanting the other to be the other rather than accepting and loving what is to create a loving energy. We forget this as within, so without. And so we have to come to that place of loving within so that we can create that love energy without. As we heard in the meditation, Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. This is not an easy time. When Jesus was born, it was the 750th year of the Roman Empire. Augustus Caesar. The world of that time was built on force, violence, and cruelty. And yet Jesus brought a message of love. Began to create a change in people to look at things differently. He won the world over with a practice and teaching of love. Oftentimes we say we are seeking love, and yet we forget that we are in, love is all around us. Love is that which is the creative power of the universe. Love is God. God and love and all is all around us. And when we seek love, it's like a water that's seeking, it's like a fish who's seeking water. The fish is looking for water, not realizing that they are in an ocean of water. And it's like us seeking love, not realizing we are in the ocean of love, of God's love, of that powerful love that exists in all things. It's a beautiful article on the internet that I love. It was a picture of two newborn infants, twins. Both were struggling, and so they put them into separate incubators. One was stronger than the other, and the weaker one was not expected to live. Now, the hospital had very specific rules on this. They were very strict. that babies could not be placed in the same incubator because they didn't want one to, pull the other one down, so to speak. However, a hospital nurse let her heart dictate her actions, and she fought the hospital rules. And she actually put the two babies together in one incubator. The healthier of the two put her arm over her sister. It actually looked like an endearing embrace. Just put her arm over there, and the smaller, weaker baby responded. Her heart rate stabilized, her temperature rose to normal, and there was hope that she would. During one of my internships for my master's degrees, I did a lot of work with premature infants. And what we tested and what we looked at was the degree to which human touch and human interaction was an influence on the health of that baby. Well, duh. What do you think the results of that? The more human interaction, the more touching. And there was a lot of those studies that back at that time began to change the whole hospital protocol, where parents were encouraged to come in and to touch their children, and to be with them even though they were in an incubator. Where so often before that time they were just left to the medical staff. The other thing I'd like to remind us of is that when we love what is, it opens the door to opportunities. It's like, again, okay, I lost my job. Well, now what? Okay, opening up to whatever it may be. So this change has occurred. Well, now what? If we can be open to the adventure and be being creative and looking at things and going, how can I use this in some interesting and powerful way? I'm going to share with you one of my favorite Christmas stories. A lady wrote about an experience. She had been buying some toys, and she said, I almost stumbled over this little boy in the middle of the sidewalk who was so busy playing with a toy. It was a computer-controlled spaceship and a walking man, that he was oblivious to the crowd that was milling around him. His obvious pleasure suggested to me that these same toys would delight my own youngsters. So I asked the little boy where he got them. They're in there, pointing to the shop right behind him. So I went in and I asked for the toys the small boy was playing with. And I picked them up, and then I said to the woman who was cashing me out, I said, who is he? And the proprietor was wrapping my purchases, and she smiled and said, well, that little boy is my Christmas present. A few days ago, he came in and he stared longingly at that spaceship, and I asked him, would you like it for Christmas? And he said, well, Mother says there isn't any money for Christmas this year. My dad died last spring, so we don't have any money. And he turned to go. Well, it had been a lean season for me, and a difficult one, but it was a week before Christmas, and so I gave him the spaceship. He was so delighted that he got no further from the sidewalk, where he sat down and he inserted the batteries, and then a most amazing thing happened. People stopped to talk to him, and I never had so many customers. I kept counting the spaceships I sold, and when he got up to go, I called him in and I gave him a commission. Then I asked him to come back the next day, and I gave him the walking man to add to his playthings. His commission was pretty good, and he told me yesterday that he plans to use his money to buy his mother a Christmas. The creative power of loving what is, of taking advantage of those opportunities in the moment, is miraculous. It starts to move things in a new way, to enhance things when we can love what is rather than arguing it. Just accept it. Say, okay, what can I do with the opportunities that are before me? And we step out and create so many more wonderful things. As within, so without. The good energy begets more good energy. The love begets more love. There's perhaps no other greater example of this than Nelson Mandela. I mean, he exemplifies loving what is. After 27 years in prison, to come out, did he argue with that reality? Argue with all that he had suffered and that he had gone through? No, he accepted it. Accepted, I am free. I am free. My freedom, what can I do with this? How can we move forward now? You know, he was released in 1990 from 27 years in prison, and by 1993 he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And what a powerful statement that in 1994 he was elected the first president of a democratic South Africa. Living his entire life to fight apartheid. And what is apartheid? But separation. Trying to bring everyone together to be whole. Loving what is. How can I use this moment for greater opportunity? This quote that's on so many of the internet, pieces about him says, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." So I invite you this week to think about love in a way that embraces all of what you are about. Loving what is. Accepting what is. Releasing the stories. Stop arguing with reality and with what is. Accept it and say, what can I now do with this? How can I make this an opportunity for me and for the world? Because then we create within love. And as with